Cool. Everybody, sorry. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, we're working out this high-tech setup that we have at the Farm Bureau, and we're adding translations today. So I'm hoping that we can do all three of these things at once. I'm going to be speaking from my laptop, so I'm going to look at my computer. So I'm looking at you. All right, now I'm going to be sharing my screen. And before we get started, is there anyone that needs Spanish translation going into this meeting?
Jesus, do you want to say that in Spanish?
¿Hay alguien en esta junta que quisiera oír la junta en español?
The PowerPoint? I'm happy to share my screen if needed.
Yeah, Maureen, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay.
I didn't pick up what you sent late yesterday afternoon. And then we'll just go from using that.
All right, let me bring it to the top. And you will have to tell me when to change the slide. And I'm going to.
So before we share the screen though, let's go around the room and do quick introductions. And the way I'll do this is I see the screen here with everybody's name. So I'll call your first name and then just introduce yourself and your affiliation. And we'll just start with Maureen.
Hi, everyone. I'm working with the Valley Water Collaborative, and I'm part of the team that is helping to organize this project. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Jackie.
Jackie Takeda. I'm with GEI Consultants, and we've helped Valley Water Collaborative to get all of the documents in order in the beginning.
Jesus.
Oh, sorry, Jesus is,
Yep.
I turned the Spanish translation on, so Jesus, you can talk now.
Hello, my name's Jesus, and I'm an outreach coordinator for Valley Water Collaborative.
Monica.
Hi, everyone. I'm an assistant program manager for the Coalition for Urban Rural Environmental Stewardship.
And it's Monica Quesada. And Ms. Guzman.
My name is Glenda Guzman. I'm with Health Plan of San Joaquin, the local medical plan in the area.
Great, thank you. JP.
Hi, I'm JP Cataviella. I'm the administrator of the Central Valley Dairy Representative Monitoring Program.
Richard.
I'm Richard Meyerhoff with GEI Consultants, been supporting Valley Water Collaborative in the development of their management zone.
Thank you, Richard. Bill Huddleston.
Hi, I'm Bill Huddleston with Stanislaus Food Products, a tomato processor in Modesto.
Thanks, Bill. Brianne.
Good afternoon, Brianne Vandenberg, Executive Director for Merced County Farm Bureau.
Thanks, Bree. Rob.
Hi, I'm Rob Needham. I'm president of the California League of Food Producers based in Sacramento.
And Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Fuller. I'm working with CV Salts in the Central Valley Regional Water Board.
Welcome, Jenny. Martha.
Yes, good afternoon, Martha Armis Kelly. I'm with the Environmental Justice Program out of Catholic Charities Diocese of Stockton, and I reside in Merced.
Great, thanks, Martha. Talia.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Delia Gastelum. I'm with California Rural Legal Assistance.
Talia. Nick.
Hi, my name is Nick Jensen. I'm here with California Rural Legal Assistance as well.
Michaela.
Hi, my name is Michaela. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm listening on behalf of Sustainable Conservation.
Gordon.
Good afternoon, Gordon Enos. I'm with Modesto Irrigation District, and I'm also with the Stanislaus Tuolumne Rivers Groundwater Basin Association, Groundwater Sustainability Agency. That's a mouthful.
Great. Welcome, Gordon. Try, I'm gonna mess that one up. Oh, you're on mute, sir.
Trig, it's trig like trigonometry.
Trig.
Trig, Cal Poly State University, San Luis Obispo.
Welcome, Trig. All right, let's see. I got out of order here. Michaela did hers. Gudu.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Godo Atumi. I'm with Clean Water Action. I'm listening on behalf of my organization, Community Water Center, and Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability.
Great, thanks for joining us, Thomas.
Hey, thanks, Perry. Hey, everybody. Tom Helm from Valley Improvement Projects, a social environmental justice organization. Thanks.
Thank you. And did I miss anybody going around the screen? We had somebody just join us.
Carlos?
Started getting on. Anybody else that
Yeah.
didn't introduce themselves? Oh, we'll go around the room here in the conference room.
Paul Huckabee, Bronco Wine Company.
Alan Reynolds, Gallo Vineyards and Valley Water Collaborative.
David Odom, Denair Community Services District.
Okay, we'll start out with the PowerPoint and go through that, and certainly hoping everyone will stay for the discussion afterwards. And we're going to do the old-fashioned way, and we've got a couple folks watching the visuals. If you've got a question, either raise your hand like this. Or sometimes it's hard to see with the background of the raised hand. You can also raise your hand, and then we'll answer those questions as we go. Again, I'm Perry Clausen, I'm Executive Director of Valley Water Collaborative. Thanks for joining us today. The next slide. We have Spanish interpretation available, so if you'd like to join that interpretation, you just click on the emblem there at the bottom of your screen, and you can get to that interpretation in Spanish, and Jesus will be handling that. So you met our outreach team that's been working on this project. Maureen Thompson, Jesus Nunez, Ava Dwyer, she started with us recently, as did Monica Quezada. So these are the folks that are helping with handling applications and all the other miscellaneous things we're all learning on the fly as we go through this program. Next slide. So today we have a pretty full agenda. We'll try to get done in less than an hour and a half, but I think we're able to cover that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Valley Water. There's a few newcomers, so I'll do that description. Also the nitrate control program, Mr. Spam Risk again. Then we'll do a program update of what we anticipate here as we're starting to develop the management zone implementation plan. Richard Meyerhoff, who we met a little earlier with GEI Consultants, helped us prepare our preliminary management zone plan, and this entity will also be helping us develop the MZIP, which we call it for short. Then Maureen's going to give you an update on the application in the data management system that we're using. I'll come back and talk about the outreach and the SAFER grant that we're applying for currently. So the next slide.
Sorry. Okay.
So what we're going to talk about is what is the nitrate control program, and then who is Valley Water Collaborative. Next slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the nitrate control program, but as far as Valley Water, we're a nonprofit that was formed about a year ago, and our sole purpose and mission is to implement the management zone approach. The second option, pathway B, that is given in the basin plan amendment that was made for the nitrate control program. And our mission, as you can see, that is to implement these programs that will provide access to safe drinking water for residents in our basins, and then also protecting and enhancing the quality of groundwater used as drinking water. Both of these are long-term programs, but they are going to be running in parallel. Certainly the drinking water is front and center right now, but as you'll hear from Richard later, there's a lot of activities that the members, the supporters of this program are in progress with doing and are planning to do in the future as they work to protect groundwater quality from nitrate contamination. So the next slide. So Valley Water is structured based on the two Modesto and Turlock subbasins. We hope to eventually add the Merced subbasin. It's a priority 2 basin in south of us. We are priority 1 basins in Modesto and Turlock. So there's a possibility they'll be joining us later, possibly next year. And we're managed by a board of directors, and 3 of them are present today. 2 of them are present on the call today, and then myself and our staff that I introduced earlier. And we have basin committees. This meeting is combined with both our stakeholders and our committee volunteers who have put their names forward to be on these committees. We expect them to play a role in planning or providing localized input on our implementation as we move forward through this program, and then help facilitate local outreach. We've already gotten some really good help, tips, and suggestions and outreach from our cooperators so far. So we look forward to continuing that as the program matures. So the next slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the nitrate control program. If you do have questions on that, Richard Meyerhoff, who helped, as I mentioned, write our earlier plans, is what I would call our in-house expert on all things details about the nitrate control program. I will tell you, though, that the program's main goals, especially in the early action plan, are to provide drinking water with safe levels of nitrate. We're doing that through our bottled water deliveries. And then, as I mentioned too, the reduction of nitrate impacts to water supplies by those who have nitrate in their inputs or in their waste discharges. And then our long-term goal is first to obtain balance, but then restore groundwater quality where it's reasonable, feasible, and practicable. And if we can work on getting some more storms like last week, I think our restoration efforts will be much simpler over time. And then the management zone approach to implementing the nitrate control program. There are 2 approaches. Those who are unfamiliar, you can do a pathway A, which is an individual approach, or you can take the management zone approach, which is what we are doing here with Valley Water and Modesto and Turlock. We've been busy. Our consultants have been busy. They developed and submitted the early action plan on our behalf on March 8th. And we're still awaiting comments on that plan. We got a preliminary review that said it was generally intact and had the requirements, but we have not yet received the final review from the regional board on that plan. And then we started our early implementation plan rollout on May 8th, 2021, and you'll see some of the results of our activities here in coming slides. Next slide. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Richard to talk about the management zone implementation plan, again, to a GEI Consultants, and Richard.
Okay, thank you, Perry. And if you could go to the next slide. All right, so a series of deliverables, as Perry has been describing, that are submitted to the regional board, first to establish the management zone as a proposal, to then finalize that proposal, then ultimately develop what is the key plan, which is actually the managed zone implementation plan that is still to be developed. And as Perry just indicated, there are several goals that are required to be met as part of the implementation of the nitrate control program. And it's the management zone implementation plan, or MZIP, that is the document that will ultimately describe how the dischargers within these management zones, both Modesto and Turlock management zones, plan to actually achieve those goals. And as indicated already, one is provided long-term safe drinking water for nitrate for each management zone, reduce nitrate loading so that the existing dischargers that are participating in the management zone do not cause or contribute to exceedances of the nitrate water quality objective. Sometimes we like to say it more simply, no longer cause impacts to groundwater. And then ultimately, where reasonable, feasible, and practicable, restore nitrate water quality in the groundwater underneath the subbasin. Sometimes we call that impaired groundwater. There will be a separate plan developed for each of the management zones to implement these goals. So next slide. So we'll put this slide in here just to kind of summarize the steps. So to explain where the MZIP fits within the overall scheme. So as Perry already indicated, a preliminary management zone proposal with an early action plan was submitted back in March of this year. It went to the regional board. They provided a response with regards in particular to the early action plan on May 7th and indicated that conditional approval to go ahead and implement the action plan in both Modesto and the Turlock management zones. That began on May 8th, and you're going to hear a lot more about what's been happening since then in a few minutes. Then there's still a key document that needs to be submitted, and that is to finalize the process to actually establish the management zone. It's called, for lack of a better term, the final management zone proposal. And it's due approximately spring of 2022 right now, based on what we understand. We're waiting on some more comments from the board on the original preliminary management zone proposal. And once they provide those to us, then the Valley Water Collaborative will have 180 days to produce that final management zone proposal. Given what we understand, we anticipate around May of next year that will be due. That is submitted to the board. The board has to review those. They go through a public review process. And then once the board accepts those proposals, the management zone then is to submit a management zone implementation plan within 6 months of the acceptance of the management zone proposal. And it's within that plan, the MZIP that I'm talking about now, is where we really get focused on how are we going to meet the requirements of the nitrate control program for the long term. Next slide. So I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of requirements. If you want to go read the basin plan, it has an enumerated list of elements and items that need to be included in the MZIP. I'm going to focus on the two big ones because that's where most of our effort will be going. One is to address the safe drinking water requirements for nitrate, and I'll break it into two parts. One is to continue for each management zone because each will be treated separately now. The Modesto has its own plan, Turlock will have its plan. How are you going to address the interim emergency water needs for those who have unsafe water quality due to high levels of nitrate? And essentially what will happen is continued implementation of the early action plan and just modified as needed, learn by doing if it's necessary over time. Continued outreach, a well testing program, which is ongoing now, and can provide replacement water as needed when the certain conditions arise. And again, we'll hear more about what's happening with that in a few minutes. Then while you're implementing that plan, the MZIP will explain what the long-term plan is to provide permanent safe drinking water supply to those areas adversely affected by nitrate. Each area will be looked at separately. We'll look at the Modesto management zone, we'll look at the Turlock management zone. We indicate we may prioritize how we implement over time. There's a lot of work still to be done to figure out how to best do that. Obviously, we want to hit the most important and critical areas first. If you've ever worked in the drinking water area, you know these are not simple solutions to just automatically provide access to permanent supplies of drinking water. But we want to develop solutions that move from this interim nature of bottled water to something more permanent. And that will all be included in the management zone implementation plan with a schedule for long-term implementation. Next slide. So to illustrate the relationship between early action plan, the interim emergency source of drinking water, which is ongoing now, and where we're headed. This is just a schematic to show that we're on the red line now. If you look at the dates across the top, 2021 to 2024 and beyond, we are in heavy duty implementation of the early action plan right now. And it began on May 8th. That will continue as necessary to the extent that it's needed throughout each of the management zones. And then slowly, as time goes on, once the management zone implementation plan begins its implementation, after it's approved by the regional board, then solutions start to be developed for permanent water that has good nitrate quality. As I indicated, we may prioritize that by different areas. We'll be looking at that. But as you keep implementing new solutions, then those areas no longer will need an early action plan because we'll have permanent solutions in place. So the intent is over a long period of time is to replace the early action plan with the permanent solutions. Next slide. All right, so the other key area I want to highlight is in terms of the MZIP is the nitrate reduction program. And as indicated, there are two parts to that in the goals for the nitrate control program. One is to look at existing nitrate discharges so that in the end, once all the programs are implemented, they no longer cause or contribute to an exceedance of the nitrate water quality objective within the management zone. There's an interim goal that's stated within the regulations to first achieve balanced loading, but that's essentially a way of saying it's a stopping place along the way where work towards that first, but ultimately you're moving towards the goal of no longer causing or contributing to an exceedance. In parallel with that, we'll be looking at what kind of program can be implemented where it's reasonable, feasible, and practicable to actually restore nitrate levels within areas that are currently have groundwater with nitrate water quality in excess of 10 milligrams per liter. So that will be another key piece of the management zone implementation plan. We'll be looking at how to best do that in the long term. Next slide. Within the nitrate reduction program, again, just like other elements of the program, there's a lot of requirements that are in the basin plan in terms of regulation, things that need to be included in the MZIP. So you'll be seeing these developed over the next year or so as we work on this plan. We need to identify short and long-term projects in our programs to reduce nitrate loading. We need to develop deadlines, both interim and final, to meet the goals of the nitrate control program. We have to go so far as identify who's going to do what over time as you implement the program. If you're having challenges for whatever reason, as you're implementing the program, what are some alternatives that you might implement along the way? These are just short bullets to summarize a lot of regulations of things we'll be looking at as we develop the MZIPs. And next slide. So to summarize for the managed zone implementation plan, just kind of bring us back to where we started here. There's an early action plan being implemented right now. We are awaiting comments on the original preliminary management zone proposal. Right now, we're anticipating early December, but that will be at the discretion of the board when they send those comments. Once that's received, we have 180 days to produce the final management zone proposal. So we're anticipating, as I indicated, spring of 2022. If that letter comes out in December, the board goes through its public review process to formally establish the management zones and accept the proposals. And finally, that's the trigger for the due date for the management zone implementation plan, which right now would be roughly probably the first part of 2023. We do show that we plan to get started in the MZIP as early as spring of next year. It's a lot of work to put those plans together, and so we may want to get a jump start on that in the spring. The final step in all of this in terms of regulatory approvals is that once those MZIPs are submitted, they too go through a very significant review process with the regional board to make sure they meet all the regulatory requirements. And then of course, implementation begins for the long term. That's my last slide, Maureen. I'll hand back to you.
Okay, I raised my own hand. Okay, Richard, I have a question for you or a clarification. And Maureen, if you could back up a couple slides. I think it's worth explaining that when we submitted our plan or early on, we had a pretty good list of what our members, Valley Water members, I call them, but we're really permit holders, ag, dairies, food processors, winery, of the activities we're doing now to manage nitrates. in our discharge. So it's not like we're waiting for this plan to get adopted or even be written, but we're doing a fair amount now to manage those discharges.
Right, that is correct. Every discharge participating in the management zone already has what's called a WDR, waste discharge requirements to implement their programs or their operations. And so those continue. What will happen in time is through the development of the MZIP, we'll look at what else needs to be done to achieve these interim and final goals. And as we determine what those elements could be, then in time, the regional board would take that information and ultimately work with the dischargers to modify their permits. So those eventually incorporate and become the regular normal practices with regards to reducing nitrate. So it's a bit of there's a lot going on now, but there's an iterative process to see what more is necessary in time to achieve the interim and final goals here.
Anybody else have any questions? And go ahead and speak up. I think we're a small group today. If you have any comments or questions. Hearing none, Maureen, if you want to forward to the.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much, Perry. Thanks, Richard. So just to give a little update on the application status and also our outreach activities, just to back up for a moment, in the early action plan that Richard mentioned, we basically took all the wells that were not part of a public water system to anticipate potential impact. So we determined that potentially 4,000, and that is equivalent to around a population of 55,000 individuals. The program started May 7th, and since then we have received a total applications of 513. Of those, around 100 individuals are not eligible. That means they're part of a public water system or not part of the program boundary Modesto Turlock Management Zone area. We've sent 213 to be sampled by the well sampling company that we use, GeoAnalytical. And of those, 123 residences are receiving bottled water. We ultimately have about 63% of those sampled that are in nitrate exceedance or have a nitrate exceedance. To describe a little bit about the application process, when someone applies for the program, we take a look at their address and we locate it on our database program, which is called MMS Mobile. And we confirm that they're not part of a public water system. We confirm that they're in the management zone. We notify the applicant of the eligibility, and that means that we double check, inform them, ask them for their consent. Can we send your information to our lab, in which case their well sample will be posted on GeoTracker. In the case of a tenant applicant, we do get owner permission. And then we send that information to GeoAnalytical, and they contact the applicant to sample their well. Once the sample is complete, we receive the results. And if the resident is in exceedance, then we send that information, their information, to our bottled water vendor, Ready Refresh, and they begin delivering bottled water. So just to show a chart of the sample results, we have 108 samples above the nitrate standard. So you can see this line here is about 10 milligrams per liter of nitrate. And then 64 samples are below the nitrate standard. And of those 64, 23 are between 7.5 and 10 milligrams per liter. And we will retest those residences, those wells, in 1 year. So we are currently using Ready Refresh by Nestle as our bottled water purveyor. We send participant information to Ready Refresh, and they contact the resident directly to arrange delivery and set up their account within their system. Included in their delivery is a free water pump. And also there are the options, different size options to accommodate everyone's needs. So we offer 1 gallon, 3 gallon, or 5 gallon bottles. We also will follow up to confirm, make sure everything's okay. things are moving along smoothly for them. We're also piloting a new technology, which is very exciting. We're working with Source Inc. They have new technology for water in the home. And we're currently looking to pilot 3 installations to evaluate the technology. And if it is successful, we'd like to expand. And basically what this is, it looks like a solar panel on top of the roof, and it will take humidity in the air and condense it to filtered water. As I mentioned before, we're using a data management system called MMS Mobile, and it's really great because we're able to take a look at a map, and here on the left, you can see that there's a pin for all the applications that we've received. And on the right, you can zoom in, and also we have data layers in there that show what are the public water systems, so we can take a look at what the water system is, who might be part of it, and go from there. And so that's something we often use during the screening process. You can also zoom in and take a look at the parcel information. It works directly with Google, so you're able to find out a little bit more information about the parcel. And then on the right, you can see other information that we've uploaded into the system. And you can see the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program and parcels that are part of the poultry program. And the poultry is in pink, the irrigated lands is in blue. So we just have more information about parcels that we're working with. Just to talk a little bit about our outreach. When the program launched, we sent postcards to 4,000 residences, the ones that I mentioned earlier that potentially are impacted. And we've done that 3 times. So we sent postcards in May, August, and October. It's hugely successful. A lot of our applicants have come because of those postcard mailings. So we will continue to do that. We've also sent email blasts out to our network, and then those folks were able to send an email blast out to their networks. So it's been a ripple effect. We've had press involved as well. So the Modesto Bee has written a few articles, and then there was also a TV station report. And finally, we've worked to present at many different municipal advisory council meetings and also city agencies. In addition, we have participated in tabling events, and you can see some pictures here of a farmer's market. We've also done public events and food banks as well. For physical distribution of flyers, we've delivered flyers to 62 different locations. That includes businesses and libraries. And we also have delivered or distributed street signs to 14 total locations in English and Spanish. We currently have waiting for us to pick up 60 more, so that will increase significantly. We've also done some social media, and this is just an example of 2 Instagram stories that we've done in both English and Spanish. Here is a list of some of the presentations and meetings we've participated in. The municipal advisory councils here at the bottom, Denair, Wood Colony, Empire, some others, some city council meetings, different neighborhoods, and then also we did a Facebook Live event, among others. Here are just a few of some of the cooperators and local contacts that we've worked with to distribute information or participate in other ways with their organizations. Perry?
Yeah, thanks. And there was a question in the chat about mailing of those postcards. And yes, we did send them to the same addresses 3 times now. That initial mailing list was developed using the database that you saw earlier. We're not sending them to anyone that lives in a public water system as best we can. The U.S. Postal Service helped us with the development of this list where you can select streets and areas, and we were able to come up with that list of 400. After the first mailing, we got probably several hundred postcards returned, undeliverables. So we have taken those names out of the mailings. So I said it was the same list. It was the same list minus those that bounced back. And it's been, as Maureen mentioned, it's been the primary way that we've been able to get applications because the phone calls start when that postcard hits. Like 2 weeks ago, it hit on Thursday and the phones rang Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, almost nonstop. So we felt like that's becoming a good way to get publicity or get the word out. And the only other thing that's been close to that was the article that ran in the Modesto Bee, and it unfortunately had a few errors that caused a lot of phone calls as well to the water purveyors, but there was a pretty good rush of applicants at that point. I'll talk in a minute about our plan to do some more work with the local media. And if the plans for the next 6 months is really a lot more of the same. We're continuing to give these presentations. Erica at Stanislaus County has helped me get into the municipal advisory councils. I think I've done 6 now. I lost count, but I think I've got a couple more to do. I go give presentations to them. Most of them are in public water systems, but they have outreach and distribution to areas immediately adjacent to their public water system. So they're helping us out here. And then the flyers, I jokingly say, we're going to paper the counties. We're going to paper Stanislaus County with our flyers in our management zone, and Jesus is doing a good job with that, and continue to expand those. And this is one of the things that I hope we can get some help from some on the call of suggestions on where we might have these posters or flyers distributed. A stack of applications on the counter, or a poster on a community board where we might be able to get some exposure there. We're also posting these street signs. As Maureen mentioned, we just ordered another batch of them. We've got a couple of requests from the municipal advisory council meetings where they wanted some of these street signs to post. And then we're probably going to be on a 2 to 3 month cycle with the postcards, just so we can keep it in front of people. We'll change up the layout a little bit and just try to get people to read their mail or read that postcard in their mailbox. We're also working with water recipients, sending them a letter, and we actually get calls, and we're asking them to ask your neighbor or tell your neighbor about this program, because if you have high nitrate, you're getting water from us, it's possible your neighbor may be in the same situation. So we're hoping to get some referrals from folks to their neighbors. And then here, starting shortly, is we're going to be doing canvassing house to house in these identified neighborhoods, especially, as I mentioned earlier, we know where there's wells that are exceeding from the recipients. We'll start doing some house to house conversations with them to hand out the literature and see if they're interested in participating in the program. Then another way that we're going to be working with the local papers is in our high school display contest. Are you go to the next slide? So we're looking for ideas of how to have a point of sale, and they call it this in the advertising word. It's not, we're not selling anything, but it's a point of sale display. If you ever walk in a grocery store, you'll see a prominent display at the end of an aisle. Those are called point of sale displays. So we'd like to develop some point of sale displays through a contest that we've come up with. Jesus has been calling a lot of his alma maters, or his alma mater, and ones he's familiar with are the high schools. He went to high school locally. So we've contacted most of the high schools, but we'll be sending a contest announcement about this point of sale display advertising campaign that we're doing. We're going to donate 3 5-gallon bottles. That's going to be their raw materials. And we're asking them to turn that into a display, a very creative display that if somebody sees it, they'll stop and look at it and hopefully grab an application off that display. And we're also, when we get these, we're going to be using them in our outdoor venues. Hopefully we can find some spots to place them in grocery stores, have them at events, and something that would be unique. We've been to a few farmers markets. I went to one when we first started, and you go to a farmer's market to buy fruits and vegetables, not to look at things that are not fruits and vegetables. And frankly, it's kind of difficult to get people's attention when you're specifically going there for another reason. So that's part of the idea behind this display, is get something that people would stop and look at and maybe apply for our program and find out if they're eligible. So we're also going to be giving them a prize. The top school is going to get $1,000 to the winning team. And then the second runner-up team would get a $500 prize. And when we launch this program, I'm going to go talk to my friend John Holland at the Modesto Bee, and hopefully we can get him to put an article together. We will also have asked, if you've noticed early on, we've had 500 applications so far. That's resulted in 100 people getting water. So that's about 20% of the applicants are successfully getting water. And as you saw with the percentages of exceedances, not everybody has the exceedances, but I think that's a good milestone for a program that just started in May, that we're getting the attention of folks. We have an audience, I mean, a universe, we think, of 4,000, those numbers that Maureen went over. We don't know if that's absolutely accurate, but it gives us an idea that there are potentially 4,000 individual wells that may have nitrates above the drinking water standard. So our goal is to reach, we're reaching out to 4,000, but we hope to get a substantial portion of those that need access to clean drinking water. So next slide, that's pretty much a summary of our activities so far. Looking to the future, we are applying for a grant through the State Water Resource Control Board. And this is through the program called SAFER, and I should have looked up what that acronym spells, but it's a pretty significant water program, that the grant program that the state set up as recently as about a year ago. And we've been working with the Department of Financial Assistance to get an application in for Valley Water Collaborative. And what this program does is expands our testing to contaminants, drinking water contaminants beyond nitrate. We're still responsible for nitrate as Valley Water and their management zones, but we are not sampling for any of the other drinking water constituents that have been identified in this area, which include arsenic, 1,2,3-T, Chrome-6, and other localized contaminants. So the SAFER grant is going to supplement our sampling so that when we go out to a well, the state will be paying, splitting the cost for going out to the site, but then paying for this substantial cost to test for these constituents. And our local lab, Geoanalytical, gave us a cost just for these constituents of about $300, whereas nitrate is in the $30 to $40 range. So this is it's a significant investment, and they are committing to, through these grants, to help us with that. And thank you, somebody in the chat room. It is safe and affordable funding for equity and resilience. That's what SAFER stands for. And then the SAFER grant will also help with cost sharing with outreach, because we're going to be changing up our message to include these different constituents, and then helping cover some of the cost of administration, and then a cost share on replacement water. And I'm giving just a few examples down below. If there's nitrate and other contaminants, Valley Water will split with the state 50-50 the cost of the replacement water. If it's nitrate only and no other constituents, then we cover the replacement water cost. And then if there's no nitrate, but there are other contaminants, then the SAFER program covers the cost of the replacement water. And as we've been working through this development, Department of Financial Assistance is a statewide entity, and they have a lot of projects going on, a lot of grants working through the shop, and they are working, as they have told us, to get our grant process as soon as possible. So we're hoping that translate into the next few months, maybe even as early as the beginning of next year. So we'll keep you informed as to the progress of that project. I think that's about it for our PowerPoint for today. If you want to read more on the nitrate control program, you can see, you can click on that CV Salinity Organization.org nitrate control program. That is the parent organization of the CV Salts effort. And they put together a really good, both layman and in-depth detailed information about management zones. You can go to our website as well to sign up for the program, sign up for outreach materials. This PowerPoint and a video of the presentation will be online here in a week or so. And then you can see my email contact there and our website. And we need to add our phone number, because we do have a dedicated phone number that is manned by our staff to answer questions And we're actually filling out a lot of applications through the phone. You don't necessarily have to have somebody go to the website. We can just key in their information and off they go. They start the application process. So we've been doing a fair amount of that recently. So any questions, comments, otherwise about what you've heard so far?
I don't have any questions. It's my first time joining the meeting. I found it to be very informative. I appreciate all the information you shared. And I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Hi, this is Martha Armis Kelly from Stanislaus Catholic Charities Environmental Justice Program. I'm just wondering, like, for the folks that do end up finding out they have some kind of contaminant, what's the follow-up for these families? Are they left just dealing with the issue that they have contaminated water, or is there some kind of remediation or some kind of program that they're going to be able to utilize to clean their water?
Yeah, I'll begin with that and pass it over to Richard. What you heard in our management zone implementation plan activities, that'll be the long-term solutions. What our early action plan was focused on, and the regional board and the stakeholders developed it, is a bottled water solution is immediate. We can, as soon as we find out their wells above the drinking water standard, we can get them water within a week. So correction of a system, redesign, putting a reverse osmosis, that's a more time-consuming process. I might mention, we are looking into reverse osmosis installations instead of bottled water in 2022. So we will be offering that to certain individuals. But as far as the source and the problem and why they have contaminated water, Richard, I'll let you elaborate on that, I think, a little bit.
I understood the question. What we're moving to, what we're trying to do now is just deal with the immediate problem. So the MZIP itself, the Managed Zone Implementation Plan, will start looking at solutions, but we're focused on nitrate. And so there may be opportunities to work with others with regards to other contaminants. That'll be evaluated as time goes on. But when you look at long-term solutions, you only have so many in the subset to work with. For example, you could consolidate with another water system if there's one adjacent to the area that could possibly be attached to. You can look at establishing another small water system. Maybe there's a group or clusters of well owners and stuff that all would benefit from some sort of solution that's implemented over some period of time. And also you could look at, there's some very unique solutions out there now. I think it was mentioned source water as an example where you can, those are more isolated. You can come up with isolated solutions to give them another source of water. All these have to be looked at. The goal here is not to leave anybody out in the end. Keep in mind our focus is on nitrate, but when there's other contaminants involved, as we know about those, then we might be looking for partners with other entities that are worrying about finding solutions for those. So this is going to be an iterative process. It's going to take some time.
Yeah, one other thing I might mention too, and this is anecdotal, just I live in Fresno County, but I know when somebody sells a house, they have to get a water test. And what we have found and seen, and this is in other areas, is that there's contamination from a septic system. When you live out in the country and you have an older facility, an older house, and maybe not a recent septic system or a properly sealed well, you can actually get nitrate contamination from your septic system that may be close to your well, or biological coliform and other things that may cause contamination. So there's really a possibility that there's things outside of this program, the realm of this program, that could be causing these problems. We're not, when it's nitrate, we don't care where it comes from at this point, and we're providing bottled water. But as far as a source identification, that's a little more difficult to determine. It takes some pretty elaborate testing of the water itself to figure out what exactly is it that's causing this. We just know from the nitrate standpoint, we use it as fertilizers. There's animal wastes to deal with in poultry and dairy. There's cities with wastewater treatment plants that have nitrate as their inputs or discharges. So those, as we mentioned several times here, are being managed now by the individual programs of those industries. Fertilizers being reported in agriculture, dairies are doing tremendous amount of work to improve their waste management. So there's a lot of work going on the macro scale. But individual wells, it's just a real difficult thing to determine what exactly is going on with that well. And that's beyond really our scope at this moment.
And I guess the next question that I have is for those folks that you were mentioning that if you see your neighbors and they're getting bottled water and the chances are that maybe you should be getting bottled water and you investigate and well, of course, you end up being a tenant and not a private well owner, but you're using a well. What happens to those? What happens to those farmers or owners of property, landowners that are renting and their water is contaminated and they just choose not to be tested?
You know, we've had a very small number of those that when they apply for the program, as Maureen went through, we send them a follow-up letter that says, if you're a tenant, and on the application it asks that question, if they're a tenant, they need to ask their landowner permission. Majority of the landowners are saying, fine, yeah, that's fine, get the well tested. And there are a few, I don't know, we've got a number top of mind. There are a few that we've not heard back from. I don't think we've had any landowners say, no, don't, you can't participate in this program. We've not got any of those. But we've had, you know, we're sending follow-ups. If we don't hear from people, we contact them again and say, hey, you know, we sent you a letter. What's the status of your response to these questions? And as far as irrigated ag, the irrigated ag component is we're encouraging the growers in our area to handle their own problems, or if they have nitrates internally. They're the ones that are paying for this program in part, irrigated agriculture and dairies and the other poultry, et cetera. They're all contributing to support this program. And we're encouraging the growers to take care of their own tenants and not use this program. We're not turning them down. In fact, we've had a number of them that are in irrigated lands or dairy, and we provide water. We're trying to focus on the rural residents, single small properties that rely on a single well to supply their drinking water. So that's really the focus right now.
And Perry, if I may add, when the regional board commented on the early action plans, one of the requests they made was that if you did have a landowner that did not allow a tenant to have their well tested after requesting it, that information was to be provided to the board. So as Perry indicated, nobody yet has said no, but if that situation does occur, the board will be aware of that.
Yeah, my understanding is the regional board's going to follow up with that.
Yeah, but my concern is like, where's the teeth in that for them? I mean,
a landowner and I say, hey, well, you know, I don't want to take part in it because, you know, for most folks that, you know, even, you know, approached with that question, it was a question of, well, what if they find something on my property and what I can't afford to clear my water, if, you know, I just barely am making it and I don't know what to do. What would be the win for me? I'm just going to find out that the water is bad. I kind of already figured it was bad, but you know, now I'm going to get sanctioned. So no thanks. I'd rather not find out.
I'm not sure how to answer that. Again, we haven't been finding that situation. If a landowner has a rental and the nitrate and we test the well, they're eligible for drinking water. So it's not that there's no onus on the owner to pay for the water. We're supplying that water. And JP, I see your hand raised. Welcome. JP's with the dairy industry to remind folks so he can. It's very
yeah, I think we could benefit from some shorter answers here. Anybody who asks for a test that is not connected to a compliant water system can get a test. We can't give water to people unless we test the water to make sure that they need it. If they give us permission to test, we test. If they, if their water's over the limit, they get drinking water. It's pretty simple. If they say we don't want to test, there's not much we can do. But if the landowner says they don't want to test, we report them to the regional board. And then the regional board enforces on them. So and believe me, they have teeth. So I think
Thank you. That's the answer I want to hear. Thank you.
I thought maybe a shorter answer would help. So that's the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that this program is going to be extending to other counties and jurisdictions. So I'm concerned because I live in Merced, and when this first came out, that was one of the things that I live out in the country, so I talked to a lot of folks, and this is like what they say. Well, I just barely was able to buy this house, so I really don't want to get put on the radar or such because my water is contaminated. Well, that's great, but if you have people that are renting from you, then they should be allowed to have that benefit of having good drinking water, even if you don't want to, so to speak, fix it. But you should at least make it available to those people that are renting. So that was my concern.
And we agree with you, Martha. That's exactly the belief I hold. I can't speak for everyone here, but I don't think we'd be funding this program if we had a different belief.
Thanks, JP. Sorry for the long answer. We will provide water if it's above the drinking water standard. We will test if they apply.
It sounds like municipal dischargers are not involved in this program. And if not, are they involved just strictly through their existing WDRs and interactions with the regional board?
So Trig, I missed the first part of your question. What was that again?
Municipal dischargers don't seem to be involved in the Valley Water Collaborative, from what I'm gathering.
They are.
They actually are. Go ahead, JP.
Yeah, okay.
I'll try to answer it shortly and then you can make it shorter.
Well, municipal, some of the cities are dischargers, so they participate in the program that way. They fund the program. The program benefits people who are mostly on rural water systems because the folks in cities have a compliant drinking water supply. So it's the people that don't have the safe drinking water supply that the program's aimed at.
Yeah, but it's the municipal wastewater, treated wastewater dischargers are contributing funding to this program.
That's right. That's correct. That's correct. They're providing safe drinking water to their own constituents, and they're also providing funding to people that aren't in their service areas so that they can have safe drinking water too.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or otherwise? And Tony, I see you joined us late. Do you mind? We went through introductions before you joined. Could you mind introducing yourself, please?
Certainly. This is Tony Tovar. I am the district manager engineer for the Salida Sanitary District. We're located just north of Modesto, south of Ripon, if you're familiar with the area.
And Tony's one of the municipalities. It's part of Valley Water Board of Directors. And Tony Madrigal. Tony, you're on mute, and I see your picture anyway. Oh, he just left. Okay. Anybody else have comments, or we have a couple of our board members? I don't know if you have anything to add or in the room.
No, it seems like it was a great overview and good questions. Thank you for those.
Hey,
Right.
I would just add, kind of adding on to the points about renters, and I think I might have mentioned this at an older past meeting. But what I think would be useful to see, and if this might already exist, is looking at the total number of estimated impacted wells and the percentage that are owners and renters, and then the percent of those that have signed up or not, then you can really see, for whatever reason it is, it might not be because of outreach or whatever other, factor is involved, but you would be able to see that, a lower percentage of the renters are getting in touch, just to have that knowledge. I don't know if that's part of the kind of the data that you went over before, if it's possible to look at that specific ratio, I guess. Thanks.
Yeah, we have that checkbox on our application, and Maureen, I don't know that we've ever totaled that, but it's out of our 500 applications. It's certainly less than what, 50 that are say they're renters.
Currently, actually, the last total, most recent one I did, we had 100 that were tenants. A third of those have gone through the program. A third are part of public water systems, and then a third are kind of in the midst of the application process.
But as far as the
Roughly.
entire universe, Tom, I don't know how we would determine out of our 4,000, roughly 4,000 names, those are owner operated versus renters. That's beyond my knowledge of how we would do that.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Thanks, still.
Well, then in that case, if you have a certain amount of identified wells, what's the ratio of the ones that you actually made contact with and those that didn't? Because the ones that didn't, I'd be interested to see how many of those are actual tenant used wells. Because there are a lot of people that will not come forward, especially if you have people that are undocumented or are in a precarious situation with their tenancy. They're not going to come and say anything's wrong with their water when they're just barely holding on to their home.
I think you guys kind of didn't solve that issue, but allowing the tenant to apply, I think, proves that someone did apply. Whether the owner approved the testing or not, you still see the tenant applying.
Right, yeah, and David just mentioned a good point. We have out of our 500, 100 that have applied, so that indicates, I mean, I don't know if that would be the universe, but that indicates that tenants are applying. As far as resolving what you describe, I am unclear about what we would do to find somebody who doesn't want to apply because of the reasons you outlined. We're going to do the canvassing, which will give us a little insight into that. We have, we'll be going to those bilingual, and if we have people that's refused, we'll be tracking that for other reasons that reasons like you cited.
I'm only bringing this up, not because I'm trying to dismiss what you're doing, because I think it's awesome what you're doing, but I just want to bring that point to light because there are so many folks out there. I mean, I deal with residents all the time that, like, you know, do you have problems with your home? Is there anything going on with your home? They won't say anything. They'll say, no, everything's fine. Why? I mean, I did this when I was screening for the asthma collaborative back in a few years back. You're asking them if there's an issue with their home, if there's something happening. They're not going to tell you something's happening. The culture is no, don't say anything because you're going to bring attention to yourself. And if they're afraid already with those issues, they're not going to bring it up and they're going to say our water's fine, or they're not going to pick up the application. So my thing is, like, is there some kind of way that, you know, that maybe in the process of
Sorry, Martha, you're breaking up.
Approach.
We missed that. Could you start again? You were just going into what you thought we could do. Could you say that again?
Well, I'm just thinking that there should be some some disclosure or some kind of way of letting them know that say something that there's not going to be any kind of repercussion for approaching and saying that their water, or maybe that they doubt their water, they have a doubt that the water is safe. I mean, I can pour my water out of my water hose and milky stuff comes out of it. I don't drink the water. I live in a rural area and I know good and well my landlord will not get his water tested, and that's cool because I'm taking that risk on my own. But if I had to, I could take it to another level because I feel confident enough that my immigration status is okay and my language, is sufficient that I'll be able to, protect myself or even represent myself. But for folks that don't have that, I think it's something that we sometimes dismiss as that everybody's got this idea that we can just go forward and say something's wrong when a lot of folks are afraid to say something's wrong. So, but again, I'm not dismissing what you're doing. I value what you're doing, but I just think that out in the country, there's a lot more folks that are on the fringe and are underrepresented already because of their immigration status, because of the language situation, which I understand you have staff that are going to help with that, but there's got to be something we can do so that those folks can get their water tested.
Self-help enterprises.
Can I offer
Early on, build some of those. potential
Yeah,
issues.
self-help is doing some work out in Tulare County, but they haven't come up in this area. I mean, again, that's what the canvas is intended to do, is to identify these neighborhoods where there's been low number of applications that have high nitrates in the mapping that we've done. Go ahead, JP.
Well, I was just going to say, and I get a little confused because I go to a lot of different management zone meetings, but I thought that, this has been one of the most important topics that we've talked about in every management zone. How do we make sure that people aren't afraid of this program? I'm sure that we, at some point in this process, tell folks, hey, this information you're providing, we take some steps to let people know, hey, this isn't going to be reported to anyone that we don't have to report it to. We do have to put the well test information to the State Water Board. We're required to do that. But other than that, no one's, we're not going to talk about any of this stuff to the county or to your employer, and we don't care about your immigration status. We don't care about any issues that you might have, so we go out of our way to make that clear. I have to say though, during this conversation, I got interested and I went to the Valley Water Collaborative website, Perry, and it was a good memory refresher. There's a very short form that you can fill out with your email address to get an application sent to you. And it doesn't say that. It doesn't, at that stage, doesn't tell people. So if they're getting scared away at that stage, we might want to do something about that. We might want to say, hey, before, don't worry, even there, I know we say it later and hopefully they aren't scared away from that. But I think that is, the real answer to the question here is we can't make somebody apply for water. We can't make somebody apply for testing. We don't really want to go out and investigate their personal information, like whether they rent or own or any of that stuff, unless they want to participate in the program, unless they opt in. But we also don't want to scare anyone away. We understand exactly what you're saying. We're worried that there are people out there that might not take advantage of this program, and that's not in their interest, and it's not in our interest for that to happen. We want them to ask for the test, and we want them to get water if they need it. That's the success of this program depends on that. So it's been our intent, even if it's not perfect, to find ways to not scare people off. And that's part of the purpose of these meetings is, what can we do better? How can we not scare people off? We also hope, this is a trust building exercise. We're out in the community. People are starting to get word of mouth. I think people are starting to realize this is safe. You can get water from this program and nothing will happen to you. but that can take a little longer. It's not for everybody. It's not as simple as getting them a postcard. It's going to take a while. So that's why we got to keep doing it. But we totally hear your concern. And if people have ideas about how to make that better, I just offered one. Maybe we even on that early application, let folks know that, you know, in whatever way we can, that you know, their information won't be used except to get them water.
Yeah, and I guess JP, you may have on the website you mentioned, I think that was a sign up for the stakeholder process. If you go to
Oh,
the
maybe
top
I
of
went to
that-
the wrong form. Okay.
Yeah, okay, let me
on there?
read you, hang on, let me read you, when you click on application, either English or Spanish, the very first paragraph says, Valley Water will not provide any information in this application to any local, state, or federal agency involved with law enforcement or immigration enforcement.
Oh, it is
We
there.
can-
I'm looking
we
at it
can-
right now. You're right. You know
we
what?
can
Could we
actually
put that
vote.
in bold? Could we put that in bold?
I was just, you took the words out of my mouth. I said, we
Okay.
can add that in bold. If that-
Yes, let's
you
put
know,
that in
that's-
bold. You're right. It does say that. Okay, so that's, and I that's what happens when you go through something too fast, but.
Yeah, we're hoping that people, when they apply for the program, read what it says about eligible applicants and such, but we can make that.
Also, you're gonna get, because I was playing with it, you're gonna get an application for water from me, and I don't really want water, so you can ignore that one. Because I was
If you're
filling out
out of
the
the
form.
area, you're disqualified.
That's right, that's right.
That's funny.
Oh, anyway, yeah, I think we can highlight that in bold and make sure that's well understood.
I think the other thing that will help is, as you mentioned, the canvassing.
Yeah.
And then the word of mouth. JP's right, it's gonna take a little longer, but if there's people in that community that are getting water and they're talking to people in that same community, that word's gonna get out. That will transmit pretty well.
Yeah, if you think about what we're doing in Valley Water and the nitrate control program, probably a year ago, nobody heard of any of the above. So we have a challenge at times on phone calls with people saying, now, come on, nothing is free. There's not such a thing as free. What are the strings attached? Oh yeah, Ready Refresh trying to get in more business. No, they're not. They often say it's Culligan, but they're not even one of our providers. So the credibility is important. We're trying to establish that. And you know, we're hoping that the groups that are on, that are in Martha, your group as well, help us develop our credibility in the communities to show that we are committed to this program of doing this well testing and getting the bottled water out to people that need it. Tom, you have your hand raised, or is that from the other time?
Oh, no, yeah, I had another quick question. I was curious if it's come up yet, or what you think about places like mobile home parks or other places where there might be an owner with multiple tenants. Have those been an issue of getting a hold? Because they're on, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're in unincorporated area, they can still have a well, right? That all the mobile homes.
Yeah, typically though, those are state or county regulated public water systems. We are providing water to a couple of mobile home parks now that have exceedances. But they are, anybody that has over three, help me, Richard, 3 hookups, David, is it 3 or 5? Are
14.
43. If you're 3 or less, you're okay.
So I'm getting mixed. Well, anyway, a mobile home park typically is a public water system that's regulated by the county and or the state or both. So that's as far as your question, Tom, that's correct. And we actually got a list of all of those from the county and the state that the ones that did have exceedances we're checking on and communicating with.
Great, thank you.
Going back to the word of mouth, how to spread it to people who might be concerned with what this all could mean in the future for them, their privacy. Maybe the people that go through the whole program and actually get their first delivery, when you do check in with them to see if they need more water, less water, how it's going, maybe that would be a good time to reach out to those people that went through the entire program encourage them, maybe even if it's just over the phone, you know, hey, please reach out, tell your neighbors how the program worked for you and things like that. I don't know if that would be something that's important or not. But
Yeah, and that's in our outreach plan for the next 6 months. I mean, it's in our plan. We're gonna be starting that soon. The 500 applications and getting that straightened out, we're good now. So we're starting to roll forward. That's been a fair undertaking to do that. We had some bottled water delivery difficulties that are straightened out now. So I think we've got that problem handled. Anybody else?
Yeah, I know I reached out before about doing like a little informational video, like less than 5 minutes long, or even like 2 or 3 minutes long, that had kind of a couple testimonials. I know that I see Herb is on the call too. I know that came out of a group that we were part of where we try to think of like water projects. I'm not even sure if you need me to help with that, or if that's something that Valley Water Collaborative is already like working on or doing, but I would still be open to helping or being involved with that. I know I haven't followed up because I just got busy, but we were looking to try to get something like that done like by February. I think our group was talking about, but yeah, if anything is already kind of in the works, please let me know, and if I can help, and if not, I'll follow up with that at some point. But that might be a good way to kind of get the word out.
Yeah, Tom, you read our minds. We last week, Jesus went and identified all of the Spanish-speaking radio stations, and we're going to develop both radio and TV spots, public service announcements. So when we get ready with that draft language, we'll call on you to help us proof it and get any comments you have to that. And as far as there's also a question there on reaching out places of worship, I know Jesus has been bringing flyers to a lot of the local community churches and such. And at this point, that's the extent of it, but I think there's opportunity to do that more as well. And again, the difficult part of this is that we are trying to reach people that are not in public water systems in the city. So it makes it a little more difficult than if it were everybody that listens to all the radio stations. It's really a segment of that population. But we're looking at what the other management zones are doing, which is helpful, and just trying to all share our own experiences of trying to figure out how to reach out. A couple of the other management zones have had success with schools. So that's part of the reason for the idea of the contest that we're going to have, is work with them to help do the outreach. And we're going to be in part of announcing that school program. We're hoping to get some insertion of our information about the program to take home to your parents, or put in newsletters that the parents might be looking at. So yeah, all ideas are welcome on how to continue to expand our footprint of our outreach. And Tony Madrigal, I see you're back. I asked you for an introduction before. I appreciate it. We're putting you on the spot, but you wouldn't mind. I see you're back on. We lost you. Oh, you're the Ag Commissioner's office. Thank you, Tony.
No. I was sorry. I couldn't talk earlier. I'm actually at work right now, just trying to sneak in this call here with you guys. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to throw out, I believe when this issue first came up with the Modesto Bee article, I notified the Spanish-speaking Univision local channel, news channel, and I believe I asked Spanish radio La Favorita radio network to blast something real quick up with the basic information with the phone number and stuff. But the idea that came to mind is, I don't know if you guys are already working with the local ag commissioners to have them get this out to their network of farmers, who can hopefully then get it out to their employees to get the word out, in case there's a lot of farm workers that live out in the country. I don't know if you guys already did that or not. Just wondered.
Yeah, we're, as I mentioned, that maybe you weren't on, but the agriculture and dairy communities are the sponsors of this program. So we're doing our own industry promotion or awareness building of this program.
Oh, okay. Well,
Not to
so
say we won't continue and try to find ways to reach out, but yeah, appreciate that suggestion, Tony.
And I'm excited to hear that you guys are going to develop a Spanish language, outreach program to identify all the radio stations. It's as someone who grew up as a farm worker here in the Central Valley, I know that one thing that farm workers we do is we just have the radio on all day, listen to music, have the time go by, and so being able to reach folks through the Spanish radio networks out there, I think could be very effective. And then after that, usually, we go home and we watch the news, and we get scared with what we saw in the news.
Join the club. All right, thank you, Tony. And everyone else, we're coming on our 3:30 end time. If there are other comments or questions, or we wrap this up.
I was just gonna say real quick, just to clarify that I think Tony was talking about like the county ag commission and not like just the industry kind of independently, but like I know, they have things where they give out masks to farm workers and stuff like that as an avenue, but I would assume that you guys have already done that as well. But I just wanted to make sure that we weren't talking about two different things.
Yeah, the irrigated lands program that represents farmers in this area, I would guess probably has as much or more participation than the ag commissioners, or if not equal to the number of people that we reach. We have 3,000 members or 2,500 members. We as the East San Joaquin and Modesto Turlock basins. So we're continuing to reach out to those folks as well. But yeah, I think we'll be ramping up our effort, keeping this effort going with reaching the communities that are most in need for this water. Well, thanks everybody for joining the call, and we welcome emails, follow-up calls, or otherwise to us to let us know for ideas. It may come to you as you're driving or talking to other folks about this situation that we're in. So appreciate your time and look forward. Watch your calendars. We'll be having these periodically, probably one more in December, and giving you updates on the SAFER grant and other activities that we're doing. So again, thank you for everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Perry.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.